Beginning, the whisper that crossed the stars, approx 500 words. The grand hall of Velithar Prime shimmered like a dream of glass and fire. Columns of translucent crystal pulsed with bioluminescent light, and above them, a nebula's slow dance spilled its colors through the skylight domes. Thousands of alien delegates had gathered, voices blending into an oceanic hum of languages, liquid tones, harmonic pulses, mechanical chimes. It was the galactic Concordium, a summit that happened only once every 1,000 cycles. And there, at the very center of it all, sat the Empress Lysara of Velithar, the living heart of an empire spanning 400 star systems. To most, she was a myth more than a monarch. Her beauty was said to drive men to madness. Her will could stop wars. Some said she wasn't flesh at all, but energy given form, a being who had transcended the line between biology and light. To Captain Elias Wren, however, she was simply breathtaking. He shouldn't have been there. He was a last-minute inclusion, a human observer representing the Terran Coalition, humanity's fragile entry into galactic politics. 1,000 cameras hovered in the air, broadcasting the Empress's presence across the known galaxy. Every species bowed. Every movement stopped when she stood. Elias had seen war. He'd lost comrades in the ash fields of Mars too. He wasn't easily moved. But when he saw her, standing beneath a cascade of shimmering energy that flowed like living silk around her form, something inside him faltered. Her eyes were like twin galaxies swirling silver, shot through with the faintest traces of violet. And when she spoke, her voice wasn't a sound so much as a resonance, something that touched the bones behind his ears, a note he could feel rather than hear. He didn't realize he'd whispered until it was too late. She's the most magnificent being I've ever seen. His translator unit picked up the words automatically. The whisper that should have died in the air instead echoed amplified across the crystalline hall. Every head turned, including hers. The Empress Lysara slowly lifted her gaze, her silver eyes locking onto him through the crowd. The hall fell utterly silent. Even the hovering drones froze midair. For 3 heartbeats, the universe itself seemed to hold its breath. Then, she stood and walked directly toward him. Middle, the Empress and the human, approx 850 words. Elias's legs almost refused to move. Every step she took toward him rippled the air. Her attendants froze in confusion. No one approached the Empress uninvited, and certainly no one dared speak of her beauty. Yet she stopped right before him. Her height was greater than his by a head, and her aura shimmered faintly as if the light itself was reluctant to leave her skin. She studied him in silence, her expression unreadable. The entire hall waited for her judgment. "You spoke," she said at last, her tone calm, yet carrying the weight of a collapsing star. "You saw me." Elias swallowed hard. I didn't mean any disrespect, your radiance." She tilted her head, eyes narrowing slightly. "Disrespect?" A faint smile, fleeting, almost sorrowful, brushed her lips. "Do you think beauty is an insult, human?" The delegates exchanged wary glances. Humans were still considered primitive by most galactic standards, and offending Velithar's Empress could mean the end of diplomatic ties. Elias shook his head. "No. It's just, no one should be worshipped for how they look. But you don't just look beautiful. You are. It's like, you carry the light of a dying sun inside you." A murmur spread through the hall. Lysara's expression changed, not to anger, but to something softer, something unreadable. "A dying sun," she repeated quietly. "That's a phrase my people would never use. But yours, it's full of sorrow and truth." Without warning, she turned. "Follow me." Before he could protest, her guards stepped aside, parting like shadows. The delegates whispered furiously as Elias, confused and awestruck, followed the Empress out of the chamber. They moved through corridors made of light and living stone until they reached a balcony overlooking the sea of stars, an expanse of open space beyond the planetary dome. Here, the stars seemed close enough to touch. Lysara leaned against the railing, her voice quiet. "Do you know why they call me Empress of the Endless Light?" Elias shook his head. "Because they think I cannot die," she said. "Because my kind renews our cells endlessly. But immortality has a cost, Captain Wren. When you live for millennia, the faces of your people fade, your loves turn to dust, and your name becomes a cage." He listened, unsure what to say. She turned her gaze on him, luminous and piercing. "When you said those words, when you saw me, I felt something I have not felt in ages. I felt seen. Not as an empress. Not as a symbol. But as a being." Her voice trembled slightly on the last word. For the first time, Elias realized that beneath all her power and majesty, there was loneliness. He took a careful step forward. "Then maybe that's all any of us want, to be seen." They stood there, two beings from worlds separated by light years, bound in that fragile silence. Suddenly, the sky flared, an explosion of light on the horizon. Sirens blared across the dome. Assassins shouted a voice through the comms. "The Concordium has been breached." Lysara's guards appeared instantly, forming a circle around her. But before they could react, a plasma bolt shot across the air, aimed straight for her heart. Without thinking, Elias moved. He threw himself in front of her, the blast catching him across the shoulder. The pain was blinding, searing, but he stayed upright long enough to shield her. When he fell, she caught him. Her hands, once regal and untouchable, now trembled as they held his blooded body. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do that?" He smiled weakly. "Because you're magnificent. Remember." Her glow intensified, and for a moment, her tears shone like molten silver. She pressed her palm to his wound, and light poured into him. Elias gasped as warmth flooded his body. The agony faded. The wound closed. He stared at her in disbelief. "You healed me." She shook her head gently. "I shared my energy with you. You'll live, but you'll carry a part of me now." As she spoke, the light of her aura dimmed. She looked human for the first time. And as the guards secured the area, Lysara whispered, almost to herself, "He whispered my truth to the stars. And for that, I am no longer alone." Ending the gaze that changed two worlds, approx 400 words. In the days that followed, chaos gave way to quiet. The assassination attempt had been traced to factions that opposed humanity's place in the Concordium. Ironically, Elias's bravery and the Empress's public defense of him had changed everything. Across the galaxy, news feeds spoke of the human captain who shielded the Empress with his body. Some called it reckless. Others called it destiny. For Lysara, it became something else entirely. When Elias awoke days later in a healing chamber, he found her waiting. She no longer wore the jeweled crown or the flowing robes. She looked smaller somehow, still radiant, but more real. "You should not bow to me anymore," she said softly. "You've already done what no one else has." Elias tried to smile. "Almost dying for someone I barely know?" She shook her head. "No. Seeing me." They walked together through the gardens of light, fields of crystalline flora that sang faint melodies as they brushed past.